Whoa, I'm so sorry, you all. I had a Zoom issue. Welcome, welcome.
Leslie, this is John. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think because of the succession in which we came on the call, it's made me the manager. So
Okay, I got it now.
I'm getting note taker requests. Should I approve those or not?
No, I think we're okay.
Okay.
Let me get our slides up. My goodness, what an ordeal that was. Okay, here we go. Well, welcome everyone to our May 1st meeting of the Kansas City Coalition for Digital Inclusion. I'm Leslie Scott. I'm the Digital Inclusion Program Manager for KC Digital Drive. So we start every meeting with our mission and vision. Every citizen and household in the Kansas City metropolitan area has access to the internet, the equipment needed to use it, and the skills needed to take advantage. And then our mission is to facilitate collaboration among organizations and initiatives working to bridge the digital divide in order to maximize the resources for greatest impact. So right now we're in a bit of a transition phase, and so if you are new to the call and interested in becoming a member, you can just contact me directly. And then in the meantime, we'd love to hear from any new attendees to the call, other than our speakers who we'll hear from in a little bit. Anyone new to our call today? Right. Well, if anybody jumps on later, I'll check in and see if we have any new people. Right, so I'm excited about our agenda today. We're going to learn about Workforce Pell. And really, this is something that I know we've really had people who have been in the trenches. Andrea Robins is here from the FEC, and I know Mr. McQueen, their fearless leader for many, many years, has been advocating for this. And so super excited to have that. I think we'll give our offices of broadband development a minute before we get into our agenda, just to give us an update. So before we get into the Workforce Pell panel, BJ, would you like to go first and give us a little update from the Missouri side?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Sorry for not being on video. I'm out of the office today, but working off of my phone. But thrilled to be back with you. And sorry it's been a while. We've had a lot of moving pieces and a long situation with not a lot of answers from our office. But glad to be with you today. Happy to share just a few points on what's going on with us. You know, it's been a busy I don't know, 6, 8 months. It seems like it's been longer than that, but it's been a busy time in our office. I'm happy to announce that yesterday we began sharing grant agreements with our BEAD awardees. So that's super exciting. So we are moving on to that next phase where they will be executing those agreements and then hopefully soon moving them into the environmental permitting process. While this is just another step, you know, we're really getting closer and closer to actually seeing groundbreaking activities once they clear NEPA. And so excited to see that happening. That's kind of our big news for April, is that we are getting grant agreements out kind of as we speak. A lot of them went out yesterday. More will go out today. With we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 some providers who are receiving grant agreements. You know, it's been a long path to get here, between multiple rounds of BEAD grant making, finally getting awarded and then approved by NTIA. But at this point, we are one step closer for the 99+% of those locations that were in our, at our disposal with the BEAD Awards. So excited to see that happening. And just kind of as we look forward, we have to execute grant agreements with each of those awarded providers. Then they begin the NEPA process, National Environmental Historic Preservation, all of those kind of permitting processes. Once they've cleared those, then we'll be able to begin construction and actually see the BEAD deployment work take shape. Kind of high level snapshot, hopefully 2,000 locations, over 800 million in BEAD funding awarded, and excited to see that work get started.
Okay, I think we may have lost BJ.
Year, first started visiting with you when I first came to the office of our ARPA funded activities. So those are our cell tower program and our ARPA broadband infrastructure program. Those projects are wrapping up today as we speak. They have until the end of August to finish up their work, get their reimbursement submitted to us, and very excited that the vast majority of those projects are already complete, and most of those will be done as we end this year. We have a few that might have seen some delays and may not be able to reach completion, but for the most part, we had great success with that program, or with both of those programs, both cell tower and the broadband direct program. So that brings us to the biggest question in kind of our office, and has been for some time, and I'm sure everybody on the call is aware, is non-deployment funding. I'm not sure exactly where you all's conversations have been going, but there was a significant period of time where we really did wonder if non-deployment funding would even be made available to the states. I firmly believe that the state's allocation is our allocation to use, but there was a period of time over the fall and into the winter that we weren't sure if that was going to be the case. And then in December, the president filed an executive order that tied AI regulations to the use of non-deployment funds. And while we don't have answers about the AI regulation part, that was kind of the first kind of hint that we would be able to utilize non-deployment funding. We were anxiously awaiting non-deployment guidance, which was expected to happen in March. And then when we were in DC around that time, we learned that it would not be coming in March. I'm sure everyone on this call has been following closely. The last thing we heard was the secretary in front of Congress say that within the next couple of months. So interpret that as you will. My anticipation is it'll be a while. It'll be several weeks still before we receive that non-deployment guidance. But then I do anticipate we will be trying to move on a pretty fast time frame to execute that. The state of Missouri does have significant non-deployment funding available to us. What those will be available to use for is kind of the harder thing for me to answer, as if you're following closely, you've seen in the news kind of where that's going. But really, there's more questions than answers at this point. And I hate to jump on here without being able to answer every question, but the fact is, until we see that non-deployment guidance, there really is some pretty wide open questions as to what we'll be able to utilize it for. There's been statements made, but nothing definitive, and nothing that we really know until we see that guidance. And, how much leeway or deference is given to states. The state of Missouri has over 900 million in non-deployment funding available. So we do have the opportunity, and we'll look to make a number of investments across the state, working with stakeholders and leadership across the state to make the determination of how best to utilize those funds. But until we receive that guidance, we're kind of in a wait and see mode, while anxiously waiting to see how we'll be able to utilize that. I think that's the high level from our office. Sorry, I don't have a lot of answers, but happy to answer questions if there are some that I could try.
BJ, would you mind dropping your email or your staff contact you'd like people to work through if they have any questions in the chat?
Yeah, I'll drop that in the chat shortly. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay. Thank you so much for that update. Bill, do you have anything else from your side at the Kansas office?
Hey everyone, I'm Bill Abston. I'm the executive director from Kansas Office of Broadband Development. Hey BJ, how you doing? The news from this side is we just closed out a permitting workshop in Hayes with all of our 13 subgrantees of the BEAD awards. We met there with federal, state folks, as well as our permitting teams. We allowed the 13 subgrantees to get to know, develop the relationship with the local folks, and to begin to address and I think we're first in the nation to hold the permitting workshop after the BEAD subgrantee award. And so we're again, just like Missouri, we will have all of our subgrantees executing their BEAD award before the July 7th date that has been fixed by NTIA, and we're in the process of negotiating, closing those things out. Our boilerplate has been on the website since our award in January. And so we're working with those subgrantees to execute those awards, and we'll be making those signing of those documents, press releases, and those kinds of things. And we did as well, ran and opened a state broadband acceleration grant, a continuation of the Ike legislation. This is the 6th year of the BAG program, and so we're running the BAG program for fiber to the home, line extensions, and middle mile. There's $16.3 million that's available in that grant program as we're running it this year. So we're continuing to run our digital opportunities. The DOC and the ADOPT programs are both in their second version, and those continue to deliver public Wi-Fi, education to the underprivileged folks of access, and education of cybersecurity, devices, and those kinds of things are run under our ADOPT and our DOC programs. So our CPF programs equal to the Missouri, we're in closeout, and those will close out no later than August of this year. As far as our non-deployment dollars, the same as in Missouri, we await for those guidelines to be admitted from NTIA. The Secretary Lupnick has indicated a couple of times in front of Senator Moran that those dollars would be held in the state. And as I look on my portal into NTIA, those dollars are still there. We just don't have the guidelines on how we will be permitted to use those. Anything else as far as we continue to strive to get reliable access to broadband to the rural areas of all of Kansas, not just the metropolitan Kansas City area. So our focus is against all the state, and so I'm available for any questions, and I'll drop my email into the chat.
I have one question for either of you or both of you. Is there any thought that non-deployment funds would be used for additional infrastructure, like some of in the benefit of the bargain when we lost some of the fiber funding and fiber got deprioritized? If there are places where the state thinks it would benefit, I don't know if that's been if that is on the radar at all.
There, and I'll take it if you want, but the non-deployment funds, we had a couple of talking sessions with NTIA where we identified possible uses, permitting, workforce development, digital opportunities, and all those kinds of things. We obviously, when the agnostic approach to the benefit of the broadband bargain was implemented, we flipped the technology mix from 70% fiber to 70% fixed wireless. that fixed wireless over a 5-year period, the electronics need to be changed out. So we would like to identify some of those funds either within our state funding, which comes from the Ike legislature, or from the non-deployment funds. Hope to be able in identifying areas of previous versions of served to the fixed wireless or less than the 100 over 20 standard. We had hoped to reinvest, and as those kind of wireless age out and become possible candidates to implement fiber, we hope to be able to direct either state funds from the BAG program or non-deployment funds to be able to support an effort to get fiber to the home.
Yeah, I think that was a good summary. The only thing I would add to that, Aaron, is that there were locations, not directly related to technology, that were removed or have since been added to the map during the re-bidding rounds. And they're at least at one point were kind of close enough that I'm confident to talk about it. There were conversations about there being a chance to get service to those types of locations that still aren't served and aren't funded. And I think in Missouri, we lost somewhere in the neighborhood of like 8,000 locations, which isn't a large number compared to the total number, but it is a large number if you're one of those locations. So yes, we do hope that there's some ability to clean that up, so to speak, and try to get service to those locations. I don't think you'll be able to utilize it if they do allow it. I don't think serve something, but you may be able to if there's truly unserved and unfunded locations. The example that I'm aware of is there was a county in, I think it was Michigan, it was one of the northern states, that when the FCC remapped locations to the maps that the restructuring policy said we had to use, every location on their map was renamed. Now it's all the same location still in reality, but because they had a new name, they were no longer BEAD eligible. So I do think there will be a push among states to try to allow some of this, quote, non-deployment funds to get service to people who still aren't served and aren't funded at this time. So at least in that unique situation, and Missouri has a number of those too because of challenge process issues and other things, we had a number of locations that were renamed between versions by the FCC. It's an example of the FCC's processes not necessarily aligning with NTIA's processes, and therefore you kind of lost some of the process. But I think in those cases, hopefully we're able to use non-deployment funds to try to reach them. Sorry for the long answer.
And Aaron, and part of our BAG program utilizing state funds, we have identified RDOF and CAF2 projects that are in essence in default. And we're opening up those locations to be challenged by applicants now, and to direct state funds to provide service to those unserved RDOF or CAF2 areas.
Awesome. Thanks. That's helpful.
Right. Well, thank you both for being here. We know you have busy days, so we welcome you to stay, but also understand if you need to hop off. And BJ, enjoy your time away from the office. Right. Well, so on to our panel for today. Really, again, excited about this topic. We're going to kick it off with a little bit of an overview from Amanda Bergson-Shilcock with the National Skills Coalition. So, Amanda, what is Workforce Pell?
Hi, Leslie. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me to be part of your conversation today. I do have a few slides to share. There's a fair bit of information on them. You do not have to scramble to take notes because I will send them all to Leslie as soon as I get off the call today, and she will share them with all of you. So I'm going to make the slides full screen now, just so that folks can see them easily. Give me 1 second for them to show up properly. Okay. So my name's Amanda Bergson-Shilcock. I work for a national nonprofit called the National Skills Coalition. We are a big tent bipartisan coalition of workforce and education advocates. We work exclusively on policy advocacy, so we don't apply for funding ourselves or try to serve learners or workers ourselves. Instead, our member organizations do that. So why does Workforce Pell matter to the digital inclusion field? We know that a lot of adults sign up for digital skill building classes or opportunities because they want to get a job or because they want to get a better job. We also know that people are often navigating a really complicated process towards what kind of credentials should I earn? How do I get that better job? And Workforce Pell is a new tool that can help people navigate that process. Knowing about Workforce Pell can help you as a digital inclusion advocate to better advise your participants and to decide if your organization might want to pursue some of this funding. So what is Workforce Pell? Last summer, Congress passed new legislation to expand the Pell Grant program. You might know what Pell Grants are. They are grants, not loans, so you don't have to pay them back. And they go directly to students who want to sign up for a college or university program. But for a long time, those Pell Grants were available only if you were studying for a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, a year-long certificate, and they weren't available for shorter term programs. So that's the big change that just happened. Congress said, okay, we're going to open up Pell Grants so that they will now be available for programs that are as short as 8 to 15 weeks long and as short as 150 hours to 600 hours long. And that information is written down on the slides. You definitely shouldn't feel that you have to remember the details here. So who's eligible to receive this money? There's kind of 3 questions to ask when you think about this new money. Is the organization eligible? Is the student or learner eligible? And then is the program they're participating in eligible? So to get Pell money directly, you have to be a higher education institution, community or technical college, university, that kind of thing. However, up to 25% of that Workforce Pell money can be subgranted to a nonprofit or another organization that's not a college and university. So if you're on this call and you're thinking, well, we're not a college, we can't get this money. The answer would be the possible way you could be eligible is if you subcontracted, if you were a subcontractor for your local community or technical college, and they had you teaching a portion of a digital skills training class. So that's the organization piece. Then there's the student piece, right? To be Pell eligible, you have to be low income. You have to have not already used up all your lifetime Pell money. You have to have an eligible immigration status, which means you have to either have been born in the U.S., be a naturalized U.S. citizen, have a green card, or have other kinds of eligible status. So for example, if you got granted refugee status or if you got granted asylum status, you'd be eligible for Pell Grants. And then finally, is the program eligible, right? And so again, remember what I said a minute ago, which is, you know, for a long time, you've been able to use your Pell Grant money to enroll in a 2-year degree program. This means you could now enroll in a much shorter term program. However, there are requirements for what that program needs to look like. And every state's governor and higher education board are working now on the specifics of how their state is going to decide if programs are eligible. The funding becomes available on July 1st, but you should really think about this as something that's going to roll out in bits and pieces over the next 3 to 5 years. Lots of states are going to take a little while to get their arms around this. Lots of colleges and universities are going to take a little bit. So don't think of this as money that your organization might be able to access right away this year. Think about it as something that if this seems interesting to you, you have a little time to kind of get your ducks in a row and figure out, does this make sense for my organization? Does this make sense for the people in the communities that I serve? So what are some possible next steps? Very simply, the first thing to do is think about, you know, what other information do I need in order to be able to advise the participants in my digital inclusion services about about Workforce Pell or refer them to partners. And, your answer might be, I don't think the participants in my program are looking for this kind of learning, and that's fine. This is not one size fits all. It's not appropriate for everyone. If you're running a community class with elders and they are not interested in returning to the workforce, this is not going to be the right pathway for them. But you might have some participants for whom this would be a good fit. And so you want to make sure you have good information to make referrals for them. And that also means thinking about like, hey, is there somebody who sits on my nonprofit's board who's connected with our state higher education agency or who's connected with our local community or technical college? Can I talk to that person about how they're working on Workforce Pell? If you want to be more ambitious, you might have a conversation with your executive director or your board of directors to say, hey, does our organization want to try to be a subcontractor on a Workforce Pell program? What would that look like? Which pieces of it will we want to do? Do we have a community or technical college that we would want to partner with? And then another thing you could do is look back in your own participant data to maybe get a sense of like, okay, how many people are we already serving for whom this might be something they'd be interested in, right? That can help you also get a sense of like, is this worth spending any time on, or should I just kind of tuck this away as that's an interesting thing that some other people are working on that's not directly connected to my work as a digital inclusion organization. I do want to end on this, though. As digital inclusion advocates, we're privy to a lot of really personal and vulnerable information that people share with us, right? They're frustrated that they can't protect themselves from online scams. They're excited at the idea that if they have better computer skills, they can help their children or grandchildren with their homework. They tell us about their dreams and their hopes for the future, right? We know the financial constraints, the low incomes, the tough jobs, the juggling schedules, the lack of childcare, the transportation problems that so many folks in digital inclusion programs are dealing with, right? And we can connect the dots to help decision makers at a community college or at our state higher education agency understand, hey, how does digital inclusion connect to the problems we're trying to solve with Workforce Pell? So that's where I want to leave it. If your organization is looking for media coverage, you can also think about whether you want to use Workforce Pell as a news hook when you're reaching out to local media. I'm happy to chat offline if folks want to do that and give you some suggestions. I have a couple minutes to take some questions, and I know Leslie needs to get to other folks on the panel here, so I'll keep them brief, but I'm going to I'll just show you that my contact information is here in the slides. So when Leslie sends the slides out, you'll be able to reach me, and I'll put it in the chat as well. But I can take, I think, a couple questions here before I turn things back over to Leslie.
Yeah, let's just so that we have a firm grasp of what Workforce Pell is, I want to just leave space for any questions so that we can have that clear understanding as we move forward. Anybody have a question? Joe.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Amanda. This is Joe Robertson. I'm with Lincoln. One of our contract things that we do is a Missouri Work Assistance Program that people are on welfare, getting state aid. They are required to work or go to school, and we have case managers that work with people on their education plans and stuff. And so I'm wondering now, is that the kind of thing that that there can be connections to Work Pell?
That's a great question. So yes, definitely. But I think probably your state hasn't quite figured out what that's going to look like yet because most states haven't, right? So every state has some level of work requirements that folks who are receiving TANF, which is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or SNAP, which is the food stamps program, or in some cases now Medicaid participants have to meet. a set of work requirements. And usually enrolling in education and training can help you meet work requirements. So it is absolutely the case that enrolling in a Workforce Pell program could help you meet those work requirements. But I haven't yet talked to any state that has totally figured out, okay, how are we going to connect our existing, TANF or SNAP or work requirement system with this new Workforce Pell program? Like they haven't figured out the connection yet.
So we'll stay tuned, I guess.
Yes. And it wouldn't hurt to ask your partners at the state level. You signal to them that you're thinking about it and you want them to be thinking about it. And that can prod them, because one of the tricky things is that in most states, the TANF or the SNAP program sits under the Department of Human Services, which is not the state education agency, right? And so you'd think they would be talking, but they aren't always talking the way we would like them to be talking.
Great, thank you. Any other questions about just Workforce Pell 101? All right, so I'm going to move to Andrea Robins with the Full Employment Council. Welcome, Ms. Robins.
Good morning. I am Andrea, as Leslie mentioned, with Full Employment Council. I am the Managing Director of Planning and Compliance with the agency, and I also have a slide to share some brief information regarding FEC and what we've been doing as it relates to digital inclusion, and then just how we see the Workforce Pell working in the career centers. So I will share this. So at Full Employment Council, we're actually in multiple counties across the region, servicing Jackson, Cass, Clay, Platte, and Ray County. So we have a presence in both urban and suburban and rural communities within the area. We focus on specific sectors based off of labor market information and employer relationships. And so we focus on healthcare, advanced manufacturing, logistics, warehouse distribution, transportation, information technology, some business services, financial services, construction, and biotechnology and biomanufacturing. We would work with customers to apply for Workforce Pell in these similar areas because they are tied to employment within the region. Based off of working with employers. And so that's something that we would continue to do, and it would allow us to expand the funding available to individuals that we currently assist through training opportunities. This is just a snapshot of where we're located throughout the region, all the way in Ray County, and our office locations. And then just a list of the services that we provide to job seekers. As a career center, we like to think of it as a one-stop career center. So not only do we provide those services that connect people to classroom training, but we also have those services that connect people to jobs and helping people connect through online job search. We have job search tools. Something that we've been excited about with working with the youth is that we've been doing the virtual career explorations with youth that allows them to participate in virtual reality and really work in a job, at least virtually, so that they know what that environment will be like. Providing labor market information, we're doing career counseling, connecting people to current jobs. And then, of course, people come to do their unemployment verification so that they can continue to receive unemployment. And then that debt-free skills training. We'd like to connect job seekers to career opportunities that will not leave them in debt. But we all know that there are some trainings that are higher skilled and require a higher credential that we unfortunately cannot pay the full cost for. RN grant is an example I like to use. This Workforce Pell would be excellent in bridging the funding and allowing individuals to not go into debt possibly, or LPN. That's another occupation where when you obtain that credential, your wages are higher than some short-term trainings. And this would allow individuals to go into that training without incurring any debt. We also provide services to employers. We allow them to use the facility to recruit and interview. We always say that we do hiring fairs. Employers use the facilities only if they have committed to providing job offers, not just job fairs where people come and interview. We provide on-the-job training funds that allows someone who doesn't have 100% of the skills, maybe they have 70% of the skills. Employers agree to hire individuals, and we will offset that training cost to bring them to 100%. We do apprenticeship, specialized assessments, and then we provide support services for individuals when they obtain employment that they may not necessarily be able to purchase themselves due to being unemployed. And then we also do rapid response when an employer is having a layoff. We go on site to meet with the individuals affected by that layoff to provide them information and resources before the layoff so that they can start to prepare for a job search. And then I included some information about individuals served last year. And just a couple of things in relation to digital literacy and equity, some things that the Career Center does in order to assist individuals. We do have some basic computer literacy courses that are available to job seekers at no cost. Just teaching them those basic things that they need to know in order to be successful in their job search. Everyone has access to computers and the internet when they visit any of our career centers. We also hold classes online. And if individuals do not have the access at their home, they can come and they can take those classes here because they have access to the internet and the computers. And then for individuals that enroll into training, or there have been some instances when individuals have obtained employment where they work from home as a result of working with us through their job search. If eligible, they could receive supportive services for a laptop and technology in order to access their device from home for a short period of time. I think I've already mentioned those. We've also done some apprenticeships in information technology, allowing people to earn while they learn, computer support, other IT positions. And so we like to celebrate those apprenticeships and those opportunities that have been made available through access of technology. We see the Workforce Pell working with the career centers. First, we've had programs where we've been able to assist individuals apply for Pell grants. Sometimes that can be challenging for individuals who have not done those applications online before. I know that when I went to school, it was paper, and now it's all electronic. And so we would hold workshops and meet with individuals one-on-one to help them access that opportunity. And then again, this would allow us to use Pell Grant first and then bridge funding, where individuals might be short, as long as those programs were what we call WIOA approved, then we could utilize additional funding to pay the gap funding that's needed. And then again, it will also allow us to serve more individuals. There's no way that everyone will qualify because there would certainly be some rules in terms of if you've used Pell before, did you complete your training within a certain time? And so that by having Pell, this will allow us to service more individuals who might not necessarily qualify for Pell. And I think that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Well, just for clarification, can you inform those who maybe don't know what WIOA is, just to give us a brief synopsis of that?
Yes. Let me stop the share. WIOA, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, is an employment and training program that is funded through the Department of Labor through the states. WIOA operates, it provides funding for adults, dislocated workers, and youth. And we consider youth those individuals between the ages of 16 to 24. And so there are eligibility requirements for each of those programs. But initially, if you're eligible, you can receive some basic level of services, which includes job search through the Career Center, interview prep, resume assistance, attendance at hiring fairs. And if you're eligible for funding, then you can receive funding for short-term, in-demand occupational training based off of labor market information. And that funding is also available for youth in the form of internships, pre-apprenticeship programs. We also assist youth through the middle college program to obtain their high school diploma. And then there are some required partners additionally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, I know what it is, but it's a little bit of a wonky thing to know about and understand. So thank you for explaining that.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. So I think we'll go to Johnson County Community College now and just hear from the Kansas side of things, how it's going, and then we'll wrap up with our great jobs folks and hear maybe how they are thinking this relates to their work. So take it away.
Okay, terrific. Can y'all hear me? Yeah, okay, great. So my name is Elisa Waldman. I'm the Vice President of Workforce Development and Continuing Education at JCCC. I've got a couple slides on what we do in that area, and then I will get into some workforce Pell. So let me also, whoops, that's not what I wanted to share. Let me move this over here. Okay, can y'all see that? We're good? Okay, great. So just very briefly, workforce development and continuing ed at the college. We usually think of JCCC as where our kids and friends go to get their first 2 years of college and then transfer to our wonderful state institutions for their 4-year degrees. And that is certainly the thrust of what we do. But we've got close to 20,000 students on the credit side. WDCE is the non-credit training side of the college. We have about 18,000 students who come to us for non-credit courses in all different workforce areas. So for example, last year we gave close to 3,000 certificates and industry certifications on the non-credit side. And I'm going to go pretty quickly through this just so that we have time, but we have a website, a digital catalog online where you can find those non-credit courses. We also offer customized training solutions to employers. So when they have something that they want made individualized to their needs, to bespoke curriculum, that sort of thing, we do all of that. Again, remember, these are all non-credit. So this might be a class that is 4 hours in length, or it might be 4 months in length. So sort of forget about the concept of the semester and grades and all those kinds of things. This is helping folks to learn the essential skills they need to do their job or to get a new job. A list of typical program areas where we have these non-credit training opportunities. So it runs the gamut, but they're specific non-credit opportunities to learn specific things. It might be a computer language. It is not a degree in, cyber security. We also have our Johnson County Adult Education program that falls under this branch as well. That is our GED and ELL, English Language Learner programs, as well as our Small Business Development Center and our Apex Accelerator, which helps businesses get government contracts. So that is a very quick overview. And some of this is going to be a repeat of what Amanda shared, but sadly, I think I'm going to be the harbinger of doom here. So to be sort of realistic in terms of what's going on, this is still a bit of a confusing situation on all 50 states. And so Workforce Pell is supposed to go into effect July 1st. We really are not ready in that the federal government has still not issued the final rules on how this will work. So therefore, we're sort of waiting on that to then be able to actually understand what we can and cannot do and who is and is not eligible for these programs. But as you've already heard, the programs themselves have to be 150 to 599 hours in length. So that tells you that it cannot be a full, it cannot be longer than 599, but it can't be a 1 week program. Learning a little bit about something is not the idea here. It always is going to need to lead to some sort of industry credential or degree. Just to get an idea of where the government's at, they're estimating about $1.5 billion invested in this over 10 years, which is wonderful. Covers short-term career-focused training programs that are very specific and that they have to lead to high-skill, high-wage occupations. And those are all defined. Often, as we were just discussing, they are WIOA qualified programs already. So we have a bit of a jump start there. So the programs, in addition to the 150 to 599 clock hours of instruction, must fall between 8 and 14 weeks of training. So again, that means that it would not be a typical traditional credit program. Those are usually longer than 14 weeks because they're a semester. But at JCCC, for example, I'm a professor on the credit side as well. I teach an 8-week I teach several 8-week courses. So we're learning to do all of that. And then we've talked about, the institutional eligibility is a Title IV institution, and we are all waiting for our governors. They are the ones through this federal law who have the ultimate say in which programs qualify and are eligible for Pell. So for example, my understanding is Missouri is a little bit ahead of Kansas at this point. Some Missouri schools have submitted to the governor's office which programs they would like to be considered for eligibility. We have not had that opportunity yet with our governor in Kansas. So every state's at a different spot. The career alignment is that these must be high skill, high wage programs. So in-demand occupations. And in theory, they have to articulate into at least one credit-bearing pathway. Articulation's a funny word. So it doesn't mean the student actually needs to pursue that credit-bearing pathway. They just have to have the ability to, if that were the case. So so let's take CDL. CDL is a little different because it ends in a licensure, which is also okay. But CDL, to be a lineman, you have to have a CDL. Lineman is a credit opportunity. So therefore CDL would likely qualify. We have to just sort of see what the governor agrees to. And then there are lots and lots of metrics, like with all of our programs, and you're all familiar with this, but the tracking and outcomes is much more robust than typical non-Pell courses have been tracking thus far, right? So remember, if a class has not been eligible for regular Pell, there is no federal financial aid available at this point for it. This is basically making federal financial aid available to some courses and some students who were not otherwise eligible. As a result, completion rate must be 70%, job placement rate must be 70%. There'll be lots of quality assurance and also value added. The price of and the amount of Pell funded will depend on a very sort of complex earnings measurement, which we don't really have time to get into today, but just want to give you the idea. The average grant they're estimating will be about $2,200. So I do want to caution you. I'll give you an example. CDL costs $7,000. So I believe it's about 3,800, 3,850 is the maximum Pell, not Workforce Pell Award that any one individual could get. So this is not going to solve all need-based challenges. However, that is a big chunk in the right direction. We are still going to lead to look for braided funding opportunities. So we and many others have been having wonderful conversations with the next speaker you're about to hear from with great jobs, because we're looking to leverage all of these braided funding options together. Lots of benefits, obviously, for those who qualify and are eligible, and this just speaks to that. But this is going to be kind of a hairy beast in terms of the administration and the eligibility, and we're going to need to do a lot of hand holding, which is great. We want to do that for those students who can benefit from it. Implementation and timeline is kind of we're a little up in the air. I would not be shocked if there's an extension of this July 1st deadline. I have not heard that for certain, but there are rumors of that just because the rules haven't come out yet. So again, no one's really behind here yet, which is great. And it is going to give lots of opportunities for non-credit students who really need to learn some essential skills for that next opportunity to possibly get financial aid for it. But I will give you an example. At JCCC, these of our 111 or 185 areas of interest, if you have, or majors, if you will, there's a handful that will likely be eligible. So in my world, it's CDL, phlebotomy, EKG technician. Those are non-credit courses that do not get any aid right now, that we are really hoping will fall into those parameters. On the credit side, we're trying to look at CNA and certified medication aid, as well as our emergency responders and technicians. Maybe the police academy, although typically the police students are already hired by the police force, and then the police force pays for their training. So there's lots and lots still to be figured out here. But we are working on it very, very intentionally and very closely, and every single day. So hopefully that gives you a little more feel for where we think we're at. Lots of digital inclusion literacy type opportunities, but they need to result in jobs, right? They need to be very directly tied to job attainment. And that's sort of our mission in what we do with short-term workforce training. So happy to take questions. And hopefully
one question I have, I think I understood from doing a little research on this, is that, say somebody wants to do a career change, even if they already have a degree, they can access Workforce Pell for an eligible use, right?
That is my understanding. What you cannot do, a student cannot be receiving a traditional Pell Grant and a Workforce Pell Grant simultaneously. Right. So they can't be for example, they can't be enrolled in our credit side of the house getting Pell funding and then come over here and say, hey, I'd like to get my CDL at the same time. Sure. Which would be great if they're in construction management and they probably need a CDL at some point. Those two things won't jive. But yes, I think, Leslie, I think your understanding is correct. If you already have an undergraduate degree, you could still be eligible if you haven't used up your lifetime maximum.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just super important for people as they think about how maybe to navigate the effects of AI on their particular job, or just for people who maybe you know have an undergraduate degree in art history and don't seem to be able to get very far with it. So
Yeah,
anyway.
and the other thing I would just really encourage your folks to do is to ask lots of questions. And I know you all are advocates for them and helping them do that, but their braided funding is the way this is going to work. So putting it together and saying, hey, JCCC, do you have any other sources? And we'll say, yeah, go talk to George and Jimmy at Great Jobs KC. Let's talk to our foundation and see what scholarships they have going on. Maybe they're, so it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle. This is just one more tool in the toolbox of that puzzle.
And our job centers too, right? Our American job centers.
And on
well.
our side, right, like FEC, we have workforce partnership, right, on the Kansas side. So for sure.
Okay, great. All right. Well, without further delay, Shonda, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Leslie. Yes, Shonda McConnell with IC Stars, new to the organization, focusing on corporate relations, partnerships, and other collaborations. And so, Elisa, is it Elisa? My apologies. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you shared. I'm curious. I just kind of was doing some research on the side. So we provide a tech workforce development program to adult learners 18 plus years old. And the program is a 14-week program, really upskilling them from a business leadership and tech perspective. And I'm just curious if this could be an opportunity for us to learn more about, I guess, the eligibility process, if our organization would be eligible. Is there like a quick resource you can provide so we can look into that further?
No, I wish there was.
Okay.
Maybe Amanda?
I would say stay tuned. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as we get those federal rules, my understanding is you would need to partner, as Amanda suggested, with a school because only the schools are actually eligible, but we use third-party vendors, if you will, all the time to provide classes. So those kinds of relationships, I think, are where it would be. I would love to talk with you more about it.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. So that's because that your time frame and what you're offering sounds, like there's potential. It's just so hard right now. We just don't know. Then we've got the governor to fight, what the governor is going to deem as worthy. So, but yeah, let's talk more. That would be great.
Yes, I'll definitely follow up. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Just to amplify what Elisa's saying, when I said we're expecting it's going to take 3 to 5 years for this funding to really fully roll out, that's why, right? The feds have not gotten their act together to release the final rules. The governors are still getting their arms around things. Like, this is a process. So think of July 1 as a starting line, definitely not as the finish line.
All right. Thank you so much. Anyone else have any questions for Elisa? All right, let's move on to our Great Jobs KC folks then.
Awesome. Thank you, Leslie. Hi, everybody. My name is Jimmy Swift. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Great Jobs KC. I'm also joined by George Hudson, who is our Director of Educational Partnerships. And my role in the organization is I oversee our 2 core programs. So we have our KC Scholars Scholarship Program, where every year we award over 1,000 scholarships to students that are seeking a traditional path of a 4-year degree. And then I also oversee our Great Jobs KC Workforce Development Program, where those are more short-term training for students that are looking to get into the field right away. And so we work with great partners like Elisa and other institutions. I have a slide to sort of show you what our model looks like. If everybody can see that. So this is sort of our 5-step model for Great Jobs KC. We have our intake. Students come through us through our website, or we are also out into the community talking about our programs, educating potential scholars on the programs that we offer. So we just review admissions documents. We identify their career interests. We give them now a digital literacy assessment. This is something we started about 5 months ago. It wasn't something that we had in our original programming, And as we started to see some students struggling once they got to their actual training, we decided to add our digital literacy assessment. And so if they don't pass the assessment, we pause them, we put them into some training for digital literacy, test them again, and then bring them back to go through our program. Once they're officially enrolled into our program, they go into our professional career skills workshops. So these are workshops that are delivered by us. They are in person, and they cover a couple of different areas. So we go over life skills. So we talk about time, money, and stress management. Then we go into career skills. So we have them start talking about their resume, interviewing, building their brand. And then we go over workplace skills. So when they're actually on the job, working as a team, effective communication. We came up with these workshops by surveying employers and saying, aside from the hard skills that you need, what are some of those soft skills that people lack when they're coming into your organizations? And so we have every single one of our students needs to go through these professional skills workshops before they go on to their occupational skills training. And so the third piece here is our training. We do not provide the training ourselves. We partner with great partners, vocational schools, community colleges, some of the programs that Elisa spoke to, our students are going through. And so they get a scholar advocate that's assigned to them from the beginning. And that scholar advocate supports them and coaches them from beginning to end. We offer scholar support resources. So we know getting students to education, right, is half the battle. The other half is getting them through that education. You know, some programs are 6 weeks, but some programs are 9 months. And that's a long time for our students, especially ones that aren't working. And so we try and help them with transportation, technology, childcare, housing assistance. And so we partner with a lot of community agencies in the area to refer students to some of those, and we handle some of them ourselves. And so they have that support throughout their training. And then we help them complete their training. Our students come to leave us debt-free. And then most of the programs that we do offer lead to a national or state certification, which we assist them with as well. Once they finish the training, we have an employer network team whose sole job is going out and getting employer partnerships. We have over 62 employer partners that have signed on with great jobs that hire many of our graduates. And then we have a career resource manager team that is updating their resume, doing workshops with them, getting them on LinkedIn, and starting to introduce them to those employers. And then once the scholar graduates from our program, they go back to their scholar advocate that they were working with originally, and we do 1 year of coaching and mentoring. You know, we know for a lot of our students this is the first time they're in a career, and so we want to make sure it's a good fit for them. And so we follow up with them around 6 or 7 times during that first year, just making sure it's a good fit. Again, you know, offering any more coaching. If there's a certification that might come up that the employer is looking for them to get, we'll assist them with that. And then if at the end of the day, if it's not a great match for them, and we've tried to coach them, then we'll assist them with finding, you know, additional employment. And so that's our model. And like most of the people said today, you know, for Workforce Pell, while we can't receive that money directly because we're not providing the training, we're hoping that many of our partners that we do partner with will be able to. And so that will lighten our load as far as covering the full gamut of tuition. And then we could put some more of those resources into the support costs. So, you know, we help with transportation and technology right now, and we wish we could help with so many other support services. And there's just, you know, so much money to go around. So if we have some of that additional money that we're not paying towards the tuition, we can help those students with other things like childcare, which is a huge expense for people. So that is our program. George, did I miss anything?
No, you did a great job there, but I do want to add, just kind of paint the picture. While there is a struggle to see how some of the units hoping to get Workforce Pell can meet the metrics of 70% employment or 70% completion, Great Jobs KC is poised to not only be a great funding partner, but also a strategic workforce Pell partner that helps build a pipeline of prepared students and be a valuable partner for functional job placement. I know a lot of people like to get away from that term, job placement. We're saying it, we do job placement for our scholars. So we feel like we can enhance our career navigation, pre-training, workshopping and preparation, and job placement by having Workforce Pell be a supplement to the dollars we're spending. We market ourselves as a last dollar funder, but we're a lot of times the all dollar funder. So we would like to really braid these resources so we can expand our reach and be more of a support to help you not only qualify, but come through with the metrics required for Workforce Pell.
Awesome. Thank you, George.
I'm wondering if you can mention, and you don't necessarily have to mention by name if you're not comfortable, but what kind of partners do you have in trying to do this work?
We have
We,
partners pretty much.
yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, George, go ahead.
Yeah, so we think about our scholarships, all the 2-year local colleges and many 4-year universities. But for our short-term training programs, we also have partnerships with community colleges and some universities. But there's a lot of local private non Title IV funded because they give us the flexibility to really get people into these short-term programs. But to be honest, our community college partners have more resources, better programs. So being it for them to be able, because they're a Title IV institution, being able to get this workforce Pell really advances the opportunities for the students that we are serving. Right now, we have currently about 42 to 43 different training programs we are partnered with for short-term training pathways. That's over 100 training programs though, because many of them have multiple programs that they deliver.
Now, one thing that we can help our partners with, as well as George said, we do track all of our completion rates for our scholars, our employment rates for our scholars. So we're tracking all of those metrics and those outcomes. And so we've gotten pretty good at it now, going on our 4th year of programming. We've had over 5,000 students that have come through our program. Over 3,000 are working in jobs. And we have currently a 66% completion rate. So, we just want to continue. Again, Workforce Pell for us will supplement some of that tuition where we can help even more scholars come through the program. And also, again, those crucial support services.
Yeah. Oh, transportation, internet service at home. I
Yes.
mean, childcare. You mentioned so many of the things that are barriers to success. So,
Yeah.
thank you for that overview.
Sure.
Anyone have any questions for our Great Jobs KC folks? So, I think fundamentally, we've talked a few times about braided funding. And so I'm wondering how, if at all, the American Job Centers, Great Jobs KC, I mean, obviously there's connections between the higher ed institutions and you all, but from an ecosystem level, like how can we do a better job of just connecting people to you all, and what opportunities maybe do you also see with working together more closely to try and move people along this digital skills continuum? It feels like it can just be difficult sometimes to figure out how to work together.
For me, really just opportunities like this one that you've given us to, be able to speak to other people that are doing the great work, like Andrea and everybody else that are doing such great work in the area. Just to be able to get this group together is really beneficial for us. We have close relationships with KC Rising, KC Chamber, and the like. And so, we've been able to expand our network by working with those organizations. But more opportunities like this are great for us.
Also, I don't think we spoke enough on this call about, we've talked about digital literacy awareness and Workforce Pell. Workforce Pell, we're talking about people needing to go online and complete applications. And for the population that we serve, many of them, that's going to be a challenge. And so I think across our different organizations, sharing best practices to get people prepared to fill out those applications and give them the technical guidance they need, which a lot of it is at the digital literacy level before they can progress.
Ms. Robbins, did you have something?
No, I think it was covered. I was going to say things like this, working together, meeting where the customer actually is, like having those workshops to apply online, knowing that people will need assistance. I think just sharing information so that there isn't duplication. Um, if there is an event for a participant for one activity, maybe combining to be able to provide multiple services to that customer at once.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we had an event last fall we called Get Help KC, and it was really designed to be that it's kind of a one-stop support event where people could come in if they didn't understand how to fill out, a job application or benefits application, or get information about how to fill out the FAFSA, which is, of course, what you need to do in order to get Workforce Pell. So um, and maybe it was just because it was the first time that we did it, but it didn't really end up working the way we'd envisioned it. So it would be great maybe to get some of the minds here on the call to together if we were interested in trying that again. Maybe it was just the first pass, and we need to keep kind of chipping away at that kind of an event to make it a success. But so anyway, if you're interested in talking more offline about that, let me know.
We're always doing those kind of things with Link, we're always trying to get people together that provide services to people in our events. So, I mean, that we'd be willing to talk on that. And, we work with the FEC a long time. And in the case of these scholars, we were doing a story, one of our MWA work assistance people, and she just happened to be at a job fair for her high school student. And then someone from Casey Scholars told her, "Hey, we have adult scholarships too," and she's got a nursing degree now. So just something,
That's
she just
great.
happened to, she didn't know about it, but she came across it at a high school fair.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, what a great story. Who else has questions or comments? All right, well, hearing none, we'll thank our panelists, and I think that the takeaway for me today is this is maybe a lot simpler in its explanation than it is in its implementation. So we'll look to see how this progresses on both sides of the state line. But I think it is such a wonderful resource to get people into these short-term training opportunities, because there is a limit even to how much the American Job Centers can provide for trainings. As Ms. Robbins said, if there's a short-term workforce Pell resource, then that can fill that other amount that maybe would have fallen otherwise on the person participating in the program, who that may be just not anything they can do. We do have a question: will there be another convening when the final rule gets published? I think that's a great question, and we can definitely keep our eye on the progress here and see if there is an opportunity for us to understand a bit more what the implementation looks like on both sides, it could be beneficial to have those be state specific, I think. And Amanda, I will ask you if you think that makes sense.
I'm sorry, Leslie, ask me if what will make sense.
No, if we have an update on when the Workforce Pell is actually implemented in the state, to have a state specific convening to talk about what that looks like in that particular state.
Got it. Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
there's so much that remains unknown right now. And yes, as we get deeper into it, there will certainly be state-specific information.
Yeah.
And helpful to update everybody about it.
Okay, great. All right. Any other questions or comments from folks? Well, with that, we'll move into our announcements section of the meeting. And again, thank you to our panelists. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here. We welcome you all to attend our meetings monthly. They're always on the first Friday of the month, except for July, because of the July 4th holiday being on the 3rd. So our next meeting will be June 5th. But anybody have any announcements? Okay. Well, again, I think just a quick anecdote. I remember years ago hearing about someone who started talking with their person serving them at one of the fast food restaurants, and that person saying, surely this is not your aspirational goal. And they're like, no, I want to be a nurse. And the customer got very inspired and did a GoFundMe to fund their pathway to a nursing degree. And all I could think of was all she had to do was go to the FEC. And so, I think that sometimes, for whatever reason, we're just not aware of some of the resources that can really be life-changing for our low-income, struggling folks who may be doing a retail job or, have some other kind of job that is just not family supporting. So appreciate everybody who does that work. It's really not easy, and those metrics are often so hard to meet because of those barriers that we mentioned. If you do have a transportation challenge, getting to training on a consistent basis may be difficult and make you not be successful. So childcare, all those things. So sometimes it's not that somebody's just not trying. It's that the barriers are just too insurmountable. So thank you for all you do, and for everybody on this call who does that one-on-one work to try and support our community. So with that, everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you all next month.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.